Happy Thanksgiving. I can't believe that even that now is a political issue. It is a real shame what's happened to this holiday, which used to be all about the good F's, food, friends, family, football, fun. And now it's fuck you. You're not even invited because you voted for the wrong person. I'm so tired of liberals ghosting half this country. Conservatives do it too, but not nearly as much. Look, whoever's doing it, it's got to stop, because we're at a point now where politics has broken up more families than letting your wife see your phone.
There's a moment every year when Thanksgiving rolls around, and the whole country collectively pretends it's a calm, cozy holiday. But if you've been anywhere near the internet lately, you know that's a fantasy. At some point, the day meant for turkey and downtime got repackaged into a loyalty test, and depending on who you follow online, you're either saving democracy or enabling the downfall of civilization right there between the mashed potatoes and the dinner rolls. And that's exactly where Bill Maher jumps in, not whispering, not hinting, but roasting the far left like they tried to cancel cranberry sauce itself.
Rachel Maddow went to Dick Cheney's funeral yesterday. We can do this, people. It's Thanksgiving. Do yourself a favor, get over yourself, and go have it with your family.
It's wild when you think about it. Thanksgiving used to be untouchable. Food, family, football, a holiday so harmless that the biggest debate was whether canned cranberry jelly counted as a hate crime. But the internet found a way to twist even that into a crisis. And Maher looked around at the chaos, blinked twice, and basically said, seriously? This is where we draw the line now. But that wasn't the whole story. Because the meltdown over Thanksgiving exposed a mindset brewing for years.
Somewhere along the way, my values became code for I'm the only one with a moral compass. You know what would have been a better exercise? Write a top 10 list to yourself where you try to imagine 10 reasons why 77 million Americans didn't want to trust you with taking power. And I say that as someone who votes Democratic. As I like to remind my very pure friends, we voted for the same person. You're just why she lost.
One that Maher has been warning about long before it was trendy. You'd think a holiday built around overeating and sitting still would be the one place politics couldn't follow you. But in the last few years, there's been a shift, mostly online, where everything has to be filtered through ideology, even the harmless stuff. Cooking, decorating, what time dinner starts. Rumors online claimed certain activists were pushing the idea that the holiday was problematic by default. Some of that was exaggerated for clicks, but the narrative spread anyway, giving the impression that you couldn't pass the gravy without being vetted first.
But in the words of that great Brit, Ricky Gervais, if you don't believe in a person's right to say things that you might find grossly offensive, then you don't believe in freedom of speech. You shouldn't have to eat your words at the airport. The chicken Alfredo on the flight was bad enough. So, Linehan may be crude, but there's plenty of non-crazy people, liberal people, who think the left has gone a little mad with trans issues. Some have expressed that opinion with literary sophistication, like J.K. Rowling. Some by getting big laughs, like Dave Chappelle. And some are downright ugly about it, like Linehan. But ugly is the price of a freedom so great as speech.
Maher saw the trend and tore into it. Not because he suddenly switched sides, but because he couldn't believe people were genuinely treating Thanksgiving like a test of personal purity. His whole point was simple. When a day built on gratitude becomes controversial, something bigger is wrong. And what happened next would shock everyone. Somewhere along the line, going no contact stopped being a private family issue and turned into an online identity badge. Your competitor's video made it sound like this was just about politics. But the reality goes deeper. Social media rewards extremes, especially the dramatic ones. Suddenly, every minor disagreement became a reason to sever ties. Not quietly, publicly, with hashtags, with Instagram captions that read less like thoughtful decisions and more like personal press releases. And the most extreme versions of this, they weren't about abuse or safety, they were about opinions. Voting, TV networks, which podcast someone listens to. Maher roasted this mindset because it treats political disagreements like unforgivable moral crimes. And whether you agree with him or not, The trend is real. More and more people online brag about cutting off relatives because it plays well with audiences who want clean, simple villains. But that was only the surface. The real shift came when politics stopped being a belief and started becoming a personality. There's a growing cultural pressure, especially in online spaces that lean far left, to treat politics as a moral identity, not a perspective, not a disagreement, a litmus test for whether you're a good human being. Maher pointed out that this mindset doesn't lead to progress, it leads to paranoia. You can't breathe wrong without worrying someone will interpret it as political heresy. You can't express confusion, nuance, or questions without risking a mob deciding you failed the purity test. The wild part? A lot of people participating in these purity rituals aren't even political experts. Their outrage is driven by vibes, whatever narrative is trending that day. And when vibes determine morality, everything becomes an emergency. Every disagreement becomes a betrayal. Every holiday becomes a battlefield. But this wasn't the final fallout. The debate over Thanksgiving opened the door to a much bigger clash. One Maher wasn't afraid to call out. Free speech has become one of the biggest cultural dividing lines of the decade, not in a theoretical sense, but in a day-to-day, can I say this online without losing my job? Sense. Maher didn't mince words. He believes the far left's escalating attempts to punish disagreeable opinions are creating a climate where people aren't debating. They're scared. And the examples are everywhere. Comedy specials sparking protests, writers being dragged for articles from 10 years ago, TikTok campaigns to get people fired for something they reposted. Some accusations are serious, others, not so much. But the response is often the same. Punishment over discussion. Fear over conversation. The UK became the boogeyman example. Americans saw headlines about people being detained over online comments, and suddenly rumor turned into panic. Some online claimed the US was headed there too. Others dismissed that as exaggeration, but just the fact that people could imagine it shows how tense the climate has become. And Maher's point wasn't that all criticism is bad, it's that treating every questionable statement as a criminal offense tears society apart, especially when the criteria for offensive changes every week. But what does any of this have to do with Thanksgiving? More than you'd think. Thanksgiving is symbolic in a way few holidays are. It forces people with differences, political, emotional, generational, to sit in the same room and coexist. That alone makes it a flashpoint in a culture where avoidance is becoming the default reaction to discomfort. Maher believes that the attempt to cancel Thanksgiving isn't really about the holiday. It's about control, a push to dictate not only what people should believe, but who they're allowed to share air with. And here's the twist. Most families aren't nearly as divided as social media claims. Most people still eat together, laugh together, argue a little, then pass the dessert anyway. The dramatic stories that go viral are the outliers, but they set the tone for everyone else. This is why Maher hammered so hard on the far left's tendency to escalate disagreements into moral crises. He's seen how quickly online tension bleeds into real life. And Thanksgiving, being the ultimate collision of family and ideology, became the perfect target. But the real story wasn't about the holiday at all. Maher's message cuts deeper than partisan punches. His whole point is that a society falls apart not when people disagree, but when people lose the ability to tolerate disagreement at all. We're living in a time when emotional resilience is shrinking and outrage is inflating. Everything feels like a crisis. Every conversation feels like a trap. Every differing view feels like an attack. And that mentality spreads fast. It turns holidays into tests, families into factions, and harmless jokes into ideological flashpoints. Maher roasted the far left because he sees them feeding into this fragility, pushing the idea that merely being in the presence of someone who votes differently is some kind of moral violation. But quietly, his warning applies to everyone. If you can't sit at a table with people who think differently, the problem isn't the table. And that's where the heart of the message actually lies. Thanksgiving isn't just a holiday. It's one of the few remaining moments where we're expected to pause, breathe, and acknowledge the good, even if the world feels messy. It's a reminder that relationships can survive disagreement, that unity doesn't require perfect alignment, and that gratitude isn't a political statement. Maher's roast wasn't about dunking on liberals for sport. It was a wake-up call. If we let ideology dictate every relationship, every conversation, every holiday, then we're choosing outrage over humanity. Because the truth is simple. A divided nation can still share a table, a divided family can still share a meal, and a divided society can still find moments of connection if it tries. Thanksgiving doesn't need to be canceled. It needs to be reclaimed, not by a party, but by the people. And maybe that's the part everyone forgot.